The first ever, to my knowledge, in my 23 years with the Tallapoosa GOP forum for a seat during the primary. So this is a forum for House 81, which is an open seat. And for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm Denise Bates. I'm chair of Tallapoosa GOP. And we have other members of our executive committee here. If you're on the executive committee, if you just stand for a brief moment. Our job, thank you. Our job is just to ensure that we have good candidates running and help them after the primary to win our offices. If you have any questions about Tallapoosa GOP, we have a Facebook page. I have, I think, over 500 followers on that page now. You'll see useful information, you'll see pithy information, and you'll see jokes because we can't be serious all the time, but it's Tallapoosa County Republican Party. Follow us on Facebook. You'll see our meeting notices there. And I will be posting all the summer meeting notices probably tomorrow. So tonight, again, I've got a few rules and on how this is going to work. First, I want to thank the Reverend Cowhick for being our moderator tonight. And before we get started, I would, if he's checking on something, I would first like Woody Baird, who is one of the sponsors of this. So let's all thank Woody for coming up with this idea. Buy a gun today. And so if Woody would come up and do the pledge, and Brother Cowhick, if you would do a prayer, then I will get started.
Y'all all stand up and please move your hands if anybody has one. Pledge, salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father, we come at this moment. Lord, you know how nervous I am, so I pray that you'll calm my nerves. I pray for all the candidates. I pray that you give them wisdom, and Lord, just guide their words in a way, Lord, that would Lord, represent what they view. I thank you for all those that are here, and I pray your blessing upon them. And Lord, I do pray for our state. I thank you for our state, that our nation. We just praise you for all that you do for us. Lord, help us to always turn to you and just lean on you, Father. For it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so before they get settled down, what we're going to do is they're going to draw names to be in the order 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the purpose of that is so that not everyone is the last person to respond, and not everyone is the first person to respond to the questions. And so we're going to go in rotating order. So, Brother Wayne, if you will do the honor.
Me ladies first, so you get to draw first. Now I'm going by age. I'm just kidding.
I have a tough time with that one.
We'll make this 4, so you don't have to make. Who's 1 over here? Number 2, 3, and 4. We'll do that because Joy's got a bum foot.
And actually, I did draw 4, so that wasn't play a favorite.
And so the way this will work is the first question will be answered in the number order 1, 2, 3, and 4. The second question will be 2, 3, 4, and 1, and that way everybody has a chance to give the last answer. A couple of house rules. First, if you would silence your cell phones, please, so that the candidates can concentrate on what they need to. This is a forum. This isn't a debate. The purpose of this is for us to get answers from them on what the issues are, not for them to debate with each other. Okay? So all answers should be directed to the moderator or to the audience. As such, there are no rebuttals to answers. Simply just answer the question as to how you would act as a House member and not discuss how others may act. So again, we're looking at what you would do as a House member rather than debating with someone else. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. You will have 3 minutes to answer each question. The timekeeper, which is me, will signal when there's 30 seconds left. and I will signal when time is up. Okay? And then after we've completed the questions, you'll have 2 to 3 minutes to wrap up your remarks at the end of the forum. Pardon me? Okay. I have more questions than time, but I think, Cal, did you put something back there to allow people to ask questions?
Just put the sheets up front, I can bring them back here if you want.
Well, did anyone fill out a question?
No.
Okay. So I have plenty of questions teed up. And so the way this is going to work is Brother Wayne will ask the question, and then he will pass the mic accordingly to the right person. Okay? Thank you again for coming.
This does not start the questions, but I'm going to start with one. And let you, Derek, let you go ahead and tell us about yourself. You got, I think it's 2 minutes, that's great. Okay.
Good afternoon. That might be better. Can you hear me better? All right, my name's Derek Blythe. I'm running for House District 81. A few things about myself is I'm a Christian, and I think that as part of being a representative, it would be my duty to uphold and ensure that Christian conservative values go to Montgomery. There's no reason that we should discontinue our walk with Christ when we walk through the State House doors. Those lessons that we've learned, we can carry down there with us and hopefully make this state better and bigger. I believe in fiscal responsibility. As your representative, I believe that it's our job as the House of Representatives because, and for instance, all revenue bills originate in the House of Representatives, that we be fiscally responsible. I am a firm believer, and it is my philosophy that you can't just fix problems by throwing money at it. If you just are throwing money at it and the problem's still there, then you're still making mistakes. Then you need to do something different. I will protect your Second Amendment rights as your representative, and I will support local law enforcement and state law enforcement. I will fight higher taxes, and I believe that parents should have the right to raise their children the way they see fit, and not the way that the state or federal government believes you should raise them. And finally, I want to promote industrial growth for this district. In this area alone, we lost 5,000 jobs a decade ago. We've not recovered. And that's just one portion of District 81. District 81 spans 3 counties and they all suffered. Anyway, thank you for your time.
My name is Terry Martin, and I am running for House District 81. I have with me tonight my beautiful wife, Ellie, and we have 2 beautiful grandchildren, and they live in Johnson City, Tennessee. We have a son, Jed, just recently married, and we have a daughter, Marcy, and they live in Johnson City, Tennessee, and she's an educator also there. But I'm a Christian. I believe in Christian values. And also, I believe that as Christians, we have responsibilities that when it comes to a vote, that we need to be able to say, hey, I made the best faith-based decision that I can. Through that, and saying that, my family and everything has been raised to worship the good Lord. We walk every day with Him. I have been one that I have really, through the years, have really come real close. And through things that has happened through the years, but this is one of the things I've wanted to do for a long time. We started running back in June 5th of 2017, so we've been tied up in the political arena now for a little over a year, and we're hoping that we'll wind up with a good turnout when we get ready to go to the polls. And that's one thing that I want to, as families go and as the communities have grown through the years, we need to push people to get to the polls. Out of 26,000 people, we had 18%, I believe, to vote in the 2014 election. And I know that my family will be out voting, and Ellen, she'll be here, and she'll be helping me too. But we want to make sure that we get people out to vote. That's one of the things I want to do. Okay, thank you.
I want to tell you that I've already started off wrong. This is actually the first question. So that counts as your first question. You're number one, okay? How about that? I did bad. We got straightened out now, right?
We're good.
Okay, Edmund?
Try to get back here without falling down. I'm Ed Oliver, and of course, I'm running for the District 81 House seat. A little about myself. I'm from Dadeville, graduated from Dadeville High School, went to the University of Alabama. I'm from the Oliver family, which some of you may remember. My dad was a judge here. And sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad. Nobody's taken a swing at me in the last week, though. After I graduated from college, I went to the Army. I enlisted as a private E-nothing. I retired about 5 years ago from the reserve as a lieutenant colonel. I spent most of my active duty career as an Army aviator. Spent a lot of time at Fort Rucker, was a flight instructor. After I came off active duty, I spent the last 15 years being an air ambulance pilot flying a medevac helicopter here in central Alabama and scattered around some of the southeastern states, but primarily right in this area. I've flown 1,100 air medical missions, and I've flown a lot of folks that y'all probably know. I'm very proud to have done that kind of service. And I always like to tell people that I am a first responder and I have gotten up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go fetch somebody. I think that's important when you're looking for somebody that'll serve you. The other thing I want to make a real point of is I ran a business here, a retail business in Alex City for 5 years. And I understand what retail is like. And that was at a time when Russell was threatening to close, all sorts of things swirling around. And I had to make a decision as to whether to stay in business or not. Well, I made a decision to go do something else where I had insurance and could take care of my family for sure. I understand that retail is the engine that runs this community. I understand that retail is what makes District 81 a place where my kids can come and go to school and have nice roads and that sort of thing. But all that said, I want to be a good representative for District 81, and thank you for coming tonight.
Joy?
Sorry. Good evening, everybody. I'm Joy Johns. I'm an Alex City girl, and I am one of y'all. I'm a real person. Not a politician by trade. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not anything like that. I am a wife, a daughter, a mom, and an insurance agent, but not the kind that chases you with brochures asking you for money. I waited to run for office till I started doing that. So all that being said, since I've been running for office, I have already been serving my district in effect. Equality Volunteer Fire Department had a fire or had to respond to a fire in December, and they couldn't get their bay doors open because they didn't have a generator and the power was out during the snowstorm. Well, I heard about it and I told them I would do what I could for them. And I made a few phone calls and I found $5,000 for them to get a generator for their fire department. It actually runs the entire 2-story department, and they couldn't be happier than anything in the world. And I'm happy because that means that no one has to lose their lives, maybe their homes, their livelihoods. That community is safer now because they have that generator. Another thing that I've done, the Verbena Fire Department, they wanted to have a fish fry to replace some of their turnout gear that it's expired. Well, I heard about it. They couldn't afford the fish for the fish fry. I called a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy and got the fish donated for them. So that was their biggest fundraiser of the year ever. Actually, he said ever. Chief Gorey said ever. $2,400. And I was proud to do it. We stayed to the end like they did, cleaning up and everything. And so that's just some examples of how I have been serving our district and how I will continue to serve should I get to Montgomery. Thank you.
Okay, let's give our candidates all a great hand. They just explained themselves. Thank you very much. Very good. Okay, Terry, this question is for you. Now we'll go from Terry to Ed to Joy, back to Derek. And that's the way we'll do these questions from now on. The first question there, Terry, for you is this. No, I'll read.
He didn't have his glasses on.
The recent school shootings in Parkland, Florida, reignited the discussion about school safety. President Trump has suggested arming teachers, while others have argued for increased use of school resource officers and funding for mental health programs. As a member of the Alabama House, how would you ensure the safety of Alabama's children in public schools? What would you support and not support for school systems within the House 81 district? Terry.
The school shootings and everything, I think we're all abreast of what's going on with that. And we hear a lot about putting school resource officers in the schools. That's well and good, but we're not addressing the problem. The problem is mental health. And with the mental health, they've known that the kids and everything that have done the shooting, they were having problems but they would not identify it. You can put all the resource officers in there that you want to. But folks, I'm telling you, there's glass all over those places. Resource officer can't be everywhere. And you know, one of the things that I would like to do and I would like to see is to go in there and put a counselor / mental health officer in there to talk and guide the kids. The counselors that we have right now, they do a great job with it, but they need to have a mental health background too, I believe. And I would push for that if elected to the House District 81. Also, well, that's a whole new different thing, but a lot of our prison problems too will be mental health too. A lot of folks there. But the things that have gone on in the high schools and everything with the shootings, it is a mental health issue, and I will push for that. And even for the security officers to be there, because they will be relied on if they have to restrain someone. And as far as with the teachers, a lot of people say the guns with the teachers. I would not put a gun in there with a teacher. The reason being, there may be 700 kids right there going through in one day. I would hate for a purse to be laying there and we're not going to get a hold of the pistol. So that's one thing that I would not support. But I would support the security people, and I would support the mental health specialists at the schools to be able to deal with the problems they have at school.
Thank you, Terry. Ed, you understand the question?
I did.
Okay.
My take on that is that everything starts with security first. That's my background, and I believe if you want to have security, you will. Mental health is a big factor. I understand that, but if you have a building and you have kids in it, there's so many external factors that you can't control, and it doesn't matter how many steps you take to prevent crazy people or people with mental illness or somebody who wants to come shoot you. Trying to treat them is wonderful when it's something we have to do, but it is a combined technique. Everything has to come into play. I'm not against having armed teachers as long as they are the appropriate armed teachers. Every teacher doesn't have any business carrying a gun, but there are a lot of them that do. No teacher is going to have a weapon in a school that is not in their personal possession all the time. I mean, on them. So gun safety is part of that issue. I believe, just like the Israelis have done and in countless other countries, that you can secure anything if you take it seriously and decide you're going to do it. And that's the thing. A school shooting doesn't happen somewhere else. You have to think it's going to happen where you are, and you have to take all the precautions that are necessary to keep it from happening.
Thank you. Ms. Joy?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you. First and foremost, before we start talking about arming teachers and getting therapists in schools and anything else like that, let's make sure that all of our school doors shut and lock every night. Because I promise you, If you go to Benjamin Russell High School on any given night, and this has been confirmed by police officers, Coosa High School too, Dadeville High School too, or Dadeville School too, any given night, one of those doors is open, and you can walk right in and do whatever you want to. So before we talk about putting metal detectors in, arming teachers and all that, let's make sure we're doing the very, very basics that we already have first. Lock the doors. If there's children in the schools, lock the doors. During any school day, you can go up to Benjamin Russell High School, doors everywhere, unlocked. Anybody could walk in there and do whatever they wanted to. So until you start your basic, just 100%, just common sense, lock your doors, then we can go on to thinking about things like changing out our glass doors for solid metal doors that lock also. Then maybe thinking about, so you don't have a glass door somebody could just break through. Or then we talk about having mental health in schools. And the mental health, I agree with Terry. As I've said before, if you have a therapist in the school, the licensed therapist there from kindergarten on up, they will catch many, many things. And I believe that'll start a new cycle in our communities, because you're going to look at school bullying in a different manner. If that therapist is there all day, every day, they'll catch those bullies first. They'll catch the poverty that was unknown at home first. They'll catch the learning disabilities earlier. They'll catch the school shooter and maybe get an intervention before he's gotten to that point where he can't do anything but kill people. And like it or not, addiction, alcoholism, most alcoholics and addicts had their first hit or their first drink between the ages of 10 and 14. So you have to, it's a combined effort, but we got to start with the basics first, the things we already have. Lock the doors, close the windows, make sure the door locks work, and then we can look at ramping things up elsewhere. Teachers with guns, that's a last resort. Resource officers should be a last resort. We should get to these things before they happen.
Let me preface my answer by saying that this answer is in relation to this question. We do not have a mental health problem when it comes to school safety. We do not have a gun problem when it comes to school safety. You have a security issue. You cannot put one officer in charge of a 40-acre campus with 10 buildings and 26 doors and expect him to secure that facility. That, in fact, the resource officers were never intended to be security for the premises. They had a different purpose. What we have to do as a nation, as a state, is take responsibility for the greatest treasure we have, and that's our children. And if we have to spend some money to actually secure these schools, to actually get some real security guards, some guys that are armed to stop these assailants before they get into the school, then that's what we need to do. If we have to forego some Chromebooks, or if we have to forego a new school bus to pay for it, then that's what we need to do. We have to get our priorities right. And it's not work backwards down to the problem. The problem is security. And we will spend money to secure the airports, the bus stations, and the courthouse. Why won't we spend money to secure those schools? Because I can assure you of this, that eventually, and you can write this down and say that Derek told you so, it's coming. One of the families that's the victim in these school shootings are going to sue the school system for not providing adequate security. And that unfortunately will be what motivates our school systems, our states, our counties, our cities to take an affirmative step to protect our children. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have a mental health issue. You ain't got a gun issue. You got a security issue. Protect our treasure. That's why God gave them to us. Okay? Now, there are a few things that you can do. You can arm teachers. Out in the Midwest, there was a state that private corporations came in, paid for the weapons, paid for the training, and armed the teachers. Now, part of that trick is you never let anybody know who the armed teachers are. But there are other ways to do this that will ensure the security of our children. Thank you.
Mr. Ed, this question's for you and all the candidates. I need to say that we're looking at public education. I guess you guys have figured that out. In 2015, Alabama became the 43rd state to approve legislation to authorize charter schools. Many states now allow parents to transfer their child from a failing public school to a non-failing public school to utilize education, savings accounts, or school vouchers, or to send students to alternative schools using tax credit scholarships, allowing parents greater control in their child's educational endeavors. How should school choice fit into Alabama's education system?
That's interesting. I believe in free market. People ought to have choices. I think your education for your child, that's something that parents ought to be able to make a decision on. You figure it costs about $8,000 per head for a child to go to public school. So if you're paying taxes and you want to send your kids somewhere else, I think that should be a right that you should have. At the same time, and this is from a parent that sent one child to a public school here and sent 3 others somewhere else. I'm full disclosure, I'm telling you how I feel. In this particular district, we have a school that's over in Chilton County that's the fiscal plan is just in trouble. You've got kids there that are wondering if the school's going to be open 2 years from now. You got parents wondering what they're going to do. That's a school that is in jeopardy, the public school. I don't know if I would send my child there as much as I'd like to support it. And I believe in public education. At the same time, we've got a large school here, a city school, Benjamin Russell. It's got its fair share of problems also. You know, we've got over 50% free or assisted lunches. Dadeville, 76%. So the ability to send your child somewhere else is an important thing you would have to consider. Now, it's double-edged. You take your child out of that school and look at what you're doing to your community. All right, if that school fails, if that public school fails, this town's gone. It will dry up. It'll just be a matter of time if something else does not come to replace it so that people can move here. We talk about bringing industry here. If you don't have a school that people are willing to put their kids in, nobody's coming here. And that's just the way it is. So that is a very difficult thing that people have to decide based on your situation and what you think is best for your child and your community. And I hope that's a good answer to the question, but that is tough. I do believe in supporting public schools, and I will go down fighting for them. But I also know that that's a hard thing.
Like Ed said, he's a tough act to follow sometimes. It is a double-edged sword because we do have that problem in our district. We lose students from Alex City to Auburn High School, to Lee Scott Academy. Mayor Neighbors will tell you he sent his grandson to Lee Scott Academy because he wasn't challenged here. I'm a product of Benjamin Russell High School. Class ring right here. First piece of jewelry I ever bought and paid for. Anyway, and I believe that the school system is not as horrible as people are making it out to be, but it does need to get better. And I think, I'm sure that'll be a question later, so I'll get back to the actual question. It should be your right as a parent to, if you vehemently don't like the school for whatever reason, to not have to go to that school. I think that you know, if I really, really, really don't want my child not to go to that school, then I probably need to move or pay the tuition or get ready to commute. But we have so many communities in our district, like Rockford, when it lost its school, it's dried up. Coosa County has been a victim of the lower tuition of the Alex City school system this year. They have gone down from 3 schools to now they have merged this coming school year. They'll have a 7th grade through a 12th grade in one school building. And they're even having to look at possibly selling either their career tech center or their high school to make budget. So that's what school choice does to your small communities. Now, if you want a bunch of ghost towns in your district, that's your option. But every child has a right to education, and every parent has the right to do that. That's one of the only God-given rights we truly, truly have, is how to raise our children. So those are your pros and cons, and not to not answer the question, but answer the question. You know, you're kind of dogged if you do and dogged if you don't. This is one of those gray areas where we would just have to fight through it, I guess. So thank you guys.
Well, I don't think that it's a difficult decision. I firmly support charter schools. I think that it was a great idea. In the private sector, in business, if you don't provide a good service, if you don't provide a good product, you go out of business. And somebody with a better business, a better product, and a better service steps up and takes your customers. In this instance, it's your students. And ladies and gentlemen, I told you in the beginning, I have a philosophy that you can't fix problems just by throwing money at it. And to say, well, you're taking money out of the local school system. You know what? They had the money to start with, and they're failing. Now, we don't have a failing school system here. So this question is not directly applicable to the school system here. But if it comes to a point where technically the school system is failing and it qualifies under the charter school statute, I firmly support every parent's right to get the best education that they can for their child. And that's what charter schools are about. It's doing the best that you can for your child. And if you, and I'll put it this way, if you were going to get cable and your cable went out every other day, would you not swap to a different cable company? Well, why should we expect parents to send their children into a failing school system and then penalize them when they want better for their children? We shouldn't. It's common sense. The charter schools are a good thing, and they're going to be good for Alabama. And I'm sorry if your school system ends up closing, but as a result, then somebody will step in and provide that service, which in this case is an education, that will be better and that will do a better job in educating your child. But that's one of those things that is fundamental to being a parent, is doing the best that you can for your child.
Well, I'll just start off by saying this. Charter schools, I am not for a charter school at all, and I'm going to tell you why. When it comes down to the schools and you start talking failing schools and everything, we don't have any in District 81. We have some that have problems financially, and those finances come from some of the corporations who's over in the Coosa County. They don't have any industry. So I don't see where you can call that a failing school. They're working hard. I've sat down and I've talked with the superintendent and talked to her at several meetings and everything. And it's not a learning problem. It's not a passing problem. They're having to consolidate right there at their school because the funding's not there. They don't have the industry to pay. The Alexander City school system. I'm a product of regular education, public education. When you take the superintendents, even in the counties, and they start doing their budgets, you take it and you go on vacation or you go have a holiday, they come back after Christmas and you've just lost 100 kids. It's $6,000 a pop, over $600,000 you just lost. You've already done a budget. What you gonna do? Charter schools, they take that money out of the system. And that's not right. And I know it's a law in the state of Alabama. But you know what? When you start looking at everything, so is balancing the budget in Alabama every year. You're supposed to have a balanced budget. And what I'm here to tell you is that, you know, with the charter schools, if they want to do charter schools, that's fine, but we do not need to take it from public education. That's my bottom line on that. And I am a 100% supportive of regular public education the way it is right now. Company wants to come in here and start a charter school and they're going to fund it 100%, sure. But I'm telling you, we already have a school system set up for that, and it is your private school systems, and they are utilizing it the way it's supposed to be done. Thank you.
Ms. Joy, this question is for you. Let me get it here. My fingers aren't working. Fiscal issues for the state. Most states resort to installing a state-run lottery to increase revenue and pay for government projects. Do you support a lottery to solve the state's fiscal woes? Why or why not?
I will say that I don't think that personally, me as a Southern Baptist, I personally don't rely on throwing my money away in hopes of becoming a millionaire one day. So personally, no, I don't think that's a viable funding option. Eventually, it evens out, and what starts off as a big payday kind of peters out towards the end. It's happening in other states around us. I will say that I do think that we are a government governed by the people, for the people. And I think that if the voters want to vote on it, then I would support that and let you guys decide how you feel it should be done. If you guys want to vote on a lottery, a statewide lottery, then that's on you. I'm not here to legislate morality. I'm here to give you to be your voice and to give you the opportunity to speak for yourself. So I wouldn't stand in the way of that. So there's my answer.
Let me begin by saying that the people of Alabama have voted on this very issue twice before, and it did not pass. So I think that pretty much answers the way that the general population feels about it. And as a representative, it's my job to be your voice in the legislature. And if that's not what you want, then it's my job to vote against it, plain and simple. I would hate to say, well, let's have another referendum, simply because it costs millions of dollars to have those referendums and to let people, because the people of Alabama have already voted on it twice. Now, let me say this, to answer the question the way it was put. I would not support just any idea for a lottery, and I'll tell you why. There's basically two different systems. If you look at Florida, out of every dollar that goes into the lottery in Florida, 1 nickel makes it to the school. And that was the whole purpose of the lottery. Now, Georgia has a different plan. And I will say this, there are children there in Georgia that are going to college now on scholarship money from the Georgia lottery. The two plans are very different. In Florida, the governor gets to allocate money to different projects, plans, road deals, things like that. He's in control of the purse strings. In Georgia, that is not the case. The money is preset at a certain amount that's taken in, is given away, a certain amount is put in the general fund, and a certain amount goes to scholarships, period. End of sentence. I can't control it. The governor can't control it. No special commission can control it. Now, if you had to pick one or the other, I'm asking you, which one would you want? Absolutely. So to answer the question is you would have to put the right plan in front of me before I would ever even vote to let them have a decision in it. Because one of the referendums that went before the people was the Florida plan. And it was voted down succinctly. The people of Alabama said no. And I think that's how most people feel. If you set it up where nobody's controlling it and nobody's using it for political gain, I think most people would say, okay, we might consider it. But you're going to have to give me the right plan to get me to vote for a referendum, because that costs millions of dollars to do. And twice people have already said no. Thank you.
State-run lottery. As I said before, I am a Christian. And on the state-run lotteries, I have a lot of friends that if a lottery was to pass, that they would be in trouble because they would be right there putting every penny that they have into the lottery. I think as a state representative, we should be able to identify things and of that nature. The lottery itself, if the people wanted it, I wouldn't stand in the way of it, because I will be representing the people. But it is also our job too to make sure that anything that is passed or voted on down there, if it does hurt our district, we don't need to let it pass. And that's the bottom line. So when it comes down to the ball fact, if the people wanted it, sure. But I think as Derek said here, there would have to be things put in there and made a change, because the simple reason it's not going to all go to the school system. You can mark that down. And it is also, I'll just tell you one of the things that I would have to do if I knew it was a sure thing and it was going to go through. The problems we're having with the infrastructure, yeah, I would put something in there in that bill to make sure that we had money there for the highways, roads, bridges, internet services, the whole infrastructure package. And with that being said, if the people wanted it, I would not stand in the way. But I do believe that in the position I would be in if elected, that my decisions will be judged by the good Lord on Judgment Day. And I think that we need to be thinking about that, because I think he tells us in the Bible, and one of the things, I'm going to hush on that, but anyway, but yes, I would go and I would support the lottery if the people wanted it. I'll just tell you that much. I wouldn't want to, because that's my personal preference, but I would, yes. Thank you.
Well, I'm just glad we're all Christians. Here's the thing. I'm not going to stand here and try to legislate any kind of morality on any of you. And I don't believe that's the role of government. I think we're all grown-ups. We want to be bad, have at it. That's not my job. My job is to give you the opportunity. If you think we are smart enough to set up some sort of lottery system that will go to the education trust fund, I'm all for it. All I've got to do is put it for a referendum and let you decide. And I'm all for that. That's not a hard moral decision for me at all. When the last referendum was done, we had a booming cotton mill here. Everybody had jobs. Life was completely different than it is now. So this is a different time. All I can say is we're smart people. We know what we need to do. If your moral convictions tell you to vote no, vote no. If they say vote yes, vote yes.
Staying with the fiscal issues, I want to do this one, move one ahead that, Derek, this question is for you. Would you support a unified state budget or propose to continue the two-budget system, education trust fund and general fund? What do you propose to do to ensure stability and growth in the state's sources of revenue and budgets?
Well, as I said, I'm a firm believer in fiscal responsibility. And I think, first off, that the money that we need to accomplish everything that state government needs to do is already there. It's just a question of us spending it appropriately and being accountable for the way it's spent. And I'll give you an example. For instance, you'll end up with road construction on roads. I had this conversation today with a gentleman with road construction on a road that there was nothing wrong with. And he said, well, I said, well, why did they do that? And he said, well, they had grant money. They had to spend it or they had to lose it. Well, you know what? I said, just because I got money in my checking account doesn't mean I have to spend it. And I think that's one of the things that we need to fix in the way that we administer government. And the way that, and to answer the question, I guess would be that I would favor the system that we have at this time, and just be more vigilant in the way that the money is spent, and police it a little better. Look at what we're doing with the money. Spend it wisely. Be good stewards of what we have. Because that's what we're called to do. And as your representative, that's my job when I go down there. Say, hey, what are you doing with this money? Where's it going? Anyway, as I said, I believe in fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
As far as the state budgets go and the physical responsibilities that we do have, I am a firm believer in physical responsibilities. With that being said, I would keep the general fund and the education budget separate. It was put there for a reason, and that's to keep, a lot of people want to rob education and coming at it at any angle they can because there's a lot of money sitting right there. But that money is used wisely. The schools that are being funded and given the money, they are using it the best way that they can. And no, it is not enough. Some of the older buildings, just the infrastructure on the buildings and stuff, it's just, they're old. We need to set up something and get a capital outlay plan to go ahead and build new schools. And that could come in as another budget plan. And what I'm trying to say on this is, if we don't leave them like they are, we won't have any money here for education in a few years. It will be consumed by the general fund budget. And there is a whole lot of earmarks that are in there in the general fund budget and everything, and they're needed. And the earmarks are there to protect it from the legislatures getting a hold of the money and put it in other pet projects. So with that being said, I am for fiscal responsibility, and I think we need to leave the budgets just the way they are.
And once again, the way we look at budgets, obviously, if people could steal money from the education budget, they would, and I think we could probably all agree on that. So they do need to remain separate. The issues that we're going to face in the future are going to be, where do we get funding for things that we have to spend extra money on? Because if your budget's already earmarked and there's no more money and you have other things you have to pay for, where do you get it? We're looking at a crisis with our prison system. The feds are about to take it over unless we figure out what we're going to do with it. Medicaid is another issue. Right now, all kids is federally funded, but it may not be next year. So those are the kinds of issues that whoever you send to Montgomery, they're going to have to be on their toes, because those are going to be hot button issues that are going to come rolling down the pike. And somebody's going to have to give something up, and they're not going to like it. Or we're going to have to find other sources of revenue. Direct answer to the question, fiscal responsibility is always key. Save, conserve what you got. I believe in oversight AlDOT, which of course is they work on our highways, do a great job, but they have no legislative oversight. There are many agencies that a little bit of supervision or a little bit of somebody looking over his shoulder might make a tremendous difference in how they did their spending. The original question though, keep them separate. You've got to have the education budget separate.
So for those of us who aren't career politicians and don't nerd up on the state budget and the general fund budgets, let me just let y'all know, because I did look this up before I got here. The Education Trust Fund is funded by our income tax, sales tax, utility taxes, and there are various other taxes that come to about 4%. So basically, what funds the Education Trust Fund is a growing revenue source. Every year there will be more money in it, more likely than not. For our general fund, which includes Medicaid, you have insurance premium taxes, cigarette taxes, property taxes, use taxes, the ABC board, or ABC taxes, sales taxes, and then all other things, which come to about 40%. So the general fund budget doesn't have a steady growing source of money every year. That's why when you get a Medicaid bill that you have to pay that's this big, and your paycheck, let's dumb it. I've got to dumb it down for me because I'm a real person too. Basically, I get paid the same every 2 weeks, right? That's the general fund. Every 2 weeks, I get paid the same. The Education Trust Fund is on commission, and there's always a profit. So until you truly look at it, and it'll never happen, to be honest, it'll never happen that they combine the two budgets. But to be fair, they should be combined. And you have it separated where, say, education gets 78% and general fund gets 22%, and that's it, and that's all. That way, both sides have a growing source of revenue. Because when it comes time to pay for Medicaid, it's going to go up next year again, probably. You're going to need more money to do it with. And we won't have that BP money next year. So I don't know where, I don't know where our general fund's where's that money going to come from if you don't do something about how things are budgeted. So you look at one, again, the Education Trust Fund, growing source of money every year. That's that person working on commission, and there's always a sale. And then the general fund, that's where you have that salaried person. Doesn't matter, there is no overtime. They get paid what they get paid every year. And that's what they got to work with, regardless of what the bills are. So my answer, yeah, I think we should combine them. Will they ever? Probably not.
Okay, Terry, we're moving to job creation. The Census Bureau suggests that Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee are creating more jobs than Alabama. How can the legislature foster job creation that rivals our neighbors to the north, east, and south? Specifically, address issues that local to District 81. How can you help attract jobs to this region? And what kind of jobs do you think you could attract in the ongoing efforts to bring jobs to the Lake Martin area?
Job creation in the Lake Martin area. Well, one of the biggest things is what we've been talking about is education. One of the main things that we haven't been doing through the years is educating our kids through technical education. We've got to have, first we'll have to have a workforce that is trained and ready to go when companies want to move in here. I know that our economic development, Lake Martin Economic Development, they are always looking at different companies and corporations. One of the biggest things that we're seeing around here is when people come in here and we're doing job creation and trying to bring companies in here, we've got to, and this is a simple one, we've got to keep our areas clean. The bottom line, the more attractive and more, I would say, beautiful that our area is where they're wanting to move to, they're going to say, hey, look at this. We want to move here because they don't throw beer cans out on the side of the road. When it rains, we do not see a bunch of trash floating down in COVID Abbott Bridge area. That's just one little thing, and it is so simple. But as far as bringing jobs to this area, I would work with Lake Martin Economic Development Board, the Alabama State Economic Board, and as I go around through the counties and I travel, what I would do is I love to visit the Chamber of Commerce too and hear their what they have to say, even when we travel and go to our families. But to bring those jobs here, there's things that we're going to have to do, and the infrastructure is going to be one of the most important things, because businesses are not going to come here unless we have a viable internet service, which is broadband. They do not want it interrupted. And that's one of the main things that I would work for it to achieve. And that way, when we say, hey, we've got broadband, your next things is your roads and bridges. You've got to get those in tip-top shape. The budgets and everything, that's just like, I think out of the road and bridge money, there's $63 million, I think, that goes to other places. When you do the math on it, that's like 200 and some odd million that in money, matching money from the federal government that we're missing. So we need to rethink where we're giving out some of this money. And then when we start getting roads and bridges in tip-top shape, they can run the 18-wheelers, they can run the truck, and won't tear the trucks up and everything. But to create jobs here in District 81, we have got to have a trained workforce, and we have got to have a workforce. Right now, I think we're about 64% retirement. And, you know, we've got to get these kids trained, and they want to be trained. But anyway, to bring business to District 81 is a combination of infrastructure and also of education. That's it. Thank you.
Yikes. How do you bring industry here? District 81 is huge. It's I-65 east to the river. It's half of Coosa County. It goes all the way down to Camp Hill from here. A lot of space, a lot of different needs, a lot of different assets. I'll talk about Alexander City, where we had one of the largest mills in the world 20 years ago. We have more processed water here than any place I know of. We've got a filter plant here that can be set up for most any kind of industry you can think of. We have a sewer system ready to go. But 20 years have gone by, nothing's happened. I'm one of those people, I'll just have to tell you, that I don't think any big company's ever going to come here, and we're never going to see that again. I just don't believe it. What I believe is right now, Lake Martin is the engine that we have that generates revenue. I do believe that if we could encourage more people to live full-time on Lake Martin, then we would be in better shape. But to do that, we would have to have retail here that was attractive to people that make a whole bunch of money and have great big houses on the lake. We don't have that. So I see it as a combination. The kind of jobs that would come here that we're getting now that are spinoffs from the car plants, they don't pay enough money. We want people to move here that will put their kids in school. We need 500 middle-class families. That's just the way it is. So it's a slow growth. It's nothing that's going to happen overnight, but it's a matter of retail, your gas stations, your stores, your people that can compete locally and service expanding as we get industry that moves in here, but the kind of industry that we want that will make Alexander City the kind of place we want to live. Now, the key to that is when people move here, what's the first thing they look at? They go to the school. And if they walk into the office and the school's not competitive with the place they came from, they keep going right on down the road. And we had that happen in Dadeville when we got a car plant. The folks that came and opened up the spinoff factory there never slowed up in Dadeville. They went straight to Auburn. So we're faced with that. We have to be competitive. The other thing is medical facilities. Coosa County doesn't have a doctor, don't have a dentist. So who is going to move there? Their population is going to be below 10,000 here in the next year or so, by the next census. Same thing over in Chilton County, and they got 2 interstate exits over there. But the thing is, you have to have the school, you have to have the medical facilities, you have to have the infrastructure, which is roads and bridges and water and all the other stuff, and yes, broadband. But I do believe it's the quality of life overall is what brings industry to your area.
Okay, I'm gonna be the odd man out here, and I'm gonna say, if we expect to bring a Chick-fil-A or a Hobby Lobby or anything of the sort to Alexander City, Alabama, we have to be able to provide them with a viable workforce. And if any of y'all argue the fact that we don't have a viable workforce, I'd like for you to go and order chili cheese tots from Sonic down the street. That's my point. That is my point. You see the help wanted signs all over. Burger King, Hardee's, Pizza Hut can't keep anybody to save their life. And all of that starts with the education system. All of that starts with you practice how you play. And that's something my dad taught me in tennis. Practice how you play. And so when these big companies come here, they don't step off the planes or step out of their SUVs and meet our dignitaries. That's not the first time they've seen Alex City. I promise you that. They don't spend that much money on an investment without visiting it first. And heaven forbid they go to one of our restaurants where you have to get change back. And there's no calculator or cell phone or cash register to tell them how much change to give back. So we can't get any kind of middle class industry here if we're not putting out middle class workers. And we're not. We need to expect more from our children. And we're not doing that at home. Well, we might be doing that at home, but I know that, and this is not the teacher's fault. This comes from higher up. The teachers can't fail our kids. They don't know what failure feels like. They don't know what losing a job feels like. There's no deadlines. It's sort of like my daughter gets an essay assignment on a Monday. She's got till Friday to get it done. We push her. We push her and push her. You've got to get it done on Friday. But she knows she doesn't. If she turns it in next week, it's just 5 points off. So equate that to our chili cheese fries or chili cheese tots we were just talking about. All right, you order them and you expect them out in 3 minutes. Well, that kid went to the same school my kid goes to. And they don't care that it's supposed to be done in 3 minutes because it doesn't really matter. They're going to get their food anyway, and you're still going to get your money at the restaurant. So we're not thinking long term. The long term, you practice how you play. If we don't get our schools right, we are not going to get any kind of middle class industry. They come to where the workers are. And they've seen us before they've met our dignitaries. They already know before they step out of the car door. We gotta put the work in on the back end, get back to the basics before we can go any further.
They say we can't get industry here. I disagree. That's what a quitter says. Ladies and gentlemen, I ain't no quitter. For the past 10 years, I personally have sent letters to corporations and businesses throughout this country when I'd find out they're fixing to build a plant or make a new product. I personally sent them a letter. Didn't ask them for anything but to come and see what we had to offer. Now, I'm not, if you elect me as your representative, I'm telling you right now, I'm not giving up on the future. I'm not. I refuse to. I think that this area can be great again if we work together. Okay? And what we have to do is we can't just sit back and wait for industry to come to us. Oh, we're just going to sit here and it's going to come. If we build it, they will come. Ladies and gentlemen, this ain't Field of Dreams. You got to go out, knock on doors, aggravate people, be a pain, say, hey, what have you got for me? Down there in Montgomery, there's a commission, there's people set up to help bring industry to the state of Alabama. I will be the bad penny they will get to say, here he is again. You got to talk to him this time. I promise you, I'm not giving up. And I'll tell you why. Because of my children, because of your children. You know what? My son wants to be an attorney. You know, and you know why? Because he wants to help people. But do you know, if we don't do something to save this area, there's not going to be anything here for him to help. It's the future. It's about the future, and I have not given up on the future. And if you will elect me as your representative, I promise you, people are going to be mad at me by the time I get through. And because this is how I operate. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. And if you aren't doing anything to help, which I personally have not seen one result. 5,000 jobs, ladies and gentlemen, 10 years ago, walked out of this community and nothing has happened since. Not any better over in Coosa County when Avondale shut down. It's time. It's time to get aggressive. Knock on some doors. You elect me as your representative, I'm going to be that bad penny down there in Montgomery. They're going to get tired of looking at me. Thank you.
All right, I think all of us need to call Amazon. Yeah. And never mind. Yeah. Mr. Ed, this is for you. Second Amendment rights. There are a lot of talk across the country regarding the limit of law-abiding Americans, their right to own firearms. Where do you stand on the following items? Two things. Constitutional carry, and what can Alabama do to ensure our constitutional rights while protecting us from the criminal behavior or mental health issues regarding guns?
Full disclosure here, I am on the board of directors for Friends of the NRA East Alabama chapter. That sounds important. It's really not. There are about 10 of us that raise money, and we give money to folks that promote shooting sports. So that's heartfelt. So I'll say this. I am a hardcore Second Amendment guy. Don't make any bones about it. I do believe mental health is an issue. I do believe that if everybody does everything right when guns are sold, that the problems that we have seen when guns are purchased legally, that'd be rare. I believe it's rare with the laws that we have now. What we see on TV, that people do wild stuff, the guns are always purchased illegally. People are doing criminal things when they get them. I'm not sure what to do about that. Mental health, once again, is the issue, and old-fashioned law enforcement. I do believe that when we do a background check on somebody, I think you should have access to mental health records. And I don't really see any way to get around that at this point. But that's as far as I'm willing to go. I believe criminals should not have guns. In Alabama, you know, if you get a pardon and you're a felon, you can go back to carrying a gun. I don't have any problem with that, as long as somebody's willing to take responsibility for you. I don't believe we ought to have to buy permits to carry guns here. I believe that's a right that you should already have. So all the laws are on the books. It's a matter of enforcement. And like I said, the Second Amendment gives us the right to carry guns and protect ourselves.
I am a proud concealed carry permit owner. I have a cute little Smith & Wesson 38 special that every 117-pound girl needs leaving deep parts of Coosa County and Tallapoosa County and Chilton County late at night. As far as constitutional carry is concerned, also, let me just add to that, I hunt. So it's not just for personal protection, it's also for, you know, food, because people still do hunt for food. So I hunt, and I have my concealed carry permit, and I have my pistol. Now, it took me all of 5 minutes to go to that courthouse, write my check for $75, and get a 5-year pistol permit. And they said, pay your money when you come back. drop the paperwork off, come back in a couple of days, we'll give you your permit if everything checks out. So my question is, I understand there's this faction out there that want constitutional carry. To me, to promote constitutional carry would be a slap in the face to all of our law enforcement. 100%. I don't understand what's so hard with responsible gun ownership. I just don't. I went through hunter safety. My dad taught me how to handle a weapon. My husband has taught me how to handle various weapons. My brother has taught me how to handle various weapons. I just don't understand what the problem is with just going and getting a permit. It's $15 a year, guys. And if it makes our law enforcement a smidge safer, if one cop, one trooper, one deputy comes home tomorrow morning because there wasn't a permit issued and they didn't get a gun, then that to me is worth it. One brother, husband, sister, mother, whatever. The second part of it, could you go back to that one for me?
What can Alabama do to ensure our constitutional rights while protecting us from criminal behavior or mental health issues regarding guns?
All right. So the mental health part of it is hard because there is no defining. It's hard to define crazy from, that cousin you got to crazy that he's probably going to kill someone with that gun. And that's always a subjective answer. So, or that's not a black and white answer for anybody. So for me, looking at the privacy angle, looking at that from that perspective, that's going to be a hard one to pass anywhere, no matter what. But again, the constitutional carry thing, slap in the face to anybody protecting us, armed forces wise. I mean, not armed forces wise, law enforcement wise.
I'm gonna reread the question. There's a lot of talk across the country regarding the limiting of law-abiding Americans their right to own firearms. Where do you stand on the following items? 2 questions. Constitutional carry. And what can Alabama do to ensure our constitutional rights while protecting us from criminal behavior or mental health issues regarding guns?
Okay, let me start by saying this. I've been a member of the NRA since I was about 18 years old. I was the vice president of the Alexander City Shooting Club for over a decade, and I am a competitor. I shoot in competitions, okay? Let me say this. We'll address the first part of that. Colonel Jeff Cooper, and not many of you probably know who he is, but that'll be a good thing you can Google later, said that an armed society is a polite society. And I think, my personal opinion is that the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution and the Alabama Constitution already gives you the right to carry a weapon and to carry it concealed. Actually, carrying it concealed is probably better because it attracts less attention. Now, you're required now to get a permit, okay? Unlike a few years ago, if you are denied a permit, there is actually a procedural due process that you are entitled to go through to have an explanation of why you were denied. And you can go in front of a judge, you can appeal it. It's actually ensured that the average citizen just couldn't be willy-nilly denied a concealed carry permit. Constitutionally, I don't think a permit should be required, but that's the law as we have it right now. You can carry open constitutionally, and there's not anything that can be said about that. That doesn't bother me. If I'm in the bank and I look over there and you've got a gun strapped on, I know that the robber's not probably going to come in there while you're in there. I feel a little better about the situation. Now, to address the other part of this mental health issue, I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, those that would trade their safety, trade their freedom for security, deserve neither. Those that would trade their security trade their freedom for security deserve neither. And ladies and gentlemen, doctors, therapists, psychiatrists are statutorily required to report if you are a danger to yourself or others. If you go into your therapist and say, I'm just going to get a shotgun and go down to Walmart, he's required by law to call local authorities and say, hey, my patient just said he's going to get a shotgun and going down to Walmart. Anyway, I think the system's already there. We just need to utilize what we have. Thank you.
I have been a member of the NRA since, Lord have mercy. And I believe that the laws that we have right now in the constitutional amendments, number 2 that we have, it gives us the freedom to carry whenever we want to. This here's one just pretty much, I'm going to be reiterating what has been said here. But anyway, as far as the constitutional carry and everything, you know, we can already carry a concealed weapon. You go in and you see and you know and it's concealed, people will say, hey, like Derek said, we ain't gonna rob this store today. See that pistol on his side. Back years ago, when we were growing up and we were in high school, we would go to school and our shotguns would be in the back window of our truck. We even had a pistol. When we turned 18, we had a pistol that stayed in the glove compartment. You know, that was our right to carry them. And today it still is. Now we've got those that's going to fight against us to carry them. You're going to have that every day. But as long as we've got the Constitutional Amendment of the United States, number 2, and then we've got the Alabama Constitution, what guards us to where we can carry them, we're going to be fine. And I think it really is the constitutional carry. I think it will just reiterate what we already have as far as the laws go. As far as on the second question that they had, I feel like that anytime that you go and you buy a handgun, rifle, or shotgun, you should be able to access the mental records. You go in there a lot of times and you'll say, well, you can't check. You can't get in there and get hold of the records. If you buy a firearm, yes, you can. Or if there is something that happens through the years and somebody knows it, that they're having some mental problems or whatever, there's a time for evaluation, and there is a way to do that too. But anyway, as far as the mental part of the question and everything, we have to be able to create the laws to where we can check the mental stability of anyone who purchases a gun. You usually won't see someone who is a law-abiding citizen break the law, but the mental unstable can't help it, and they will get their hands on guns, no matter what. But yes, I do believe that we should be able to look at the mental records if we do. Thank you.
Ms. Joy, talking criminal justice and prison reforms. Alabama has received national attention for the state of its prisons, and a federal judge recently called inmate care horrendously inadequate. How would you address this issue? And do you support the use of private prisons?
I was looking for my prepared statement on this. Just kidding, guys. I did have a statistic I was looking for, though. Give me just a second. Okay, so we're just going to go from memory here. All right. One more time.
Okay. Alabama has received national attention for the state of its prisons, and a federal judge recently called inmate care horrendously inadequate. How would you address this issue, and do you support the use of private prisons?
Okay. I will say that we have an overcrowding problem, and that is not helping the conditions in our prisons. And the feds have said, yes, clean up your act, or we're gonna come in and take over. But they haven't done that yet. We comply, and then they come back and they say, all right, you gotta do this too. And we comply, and they say, you gotta do this too. And we're doing that. And I think that we can fix it. I think that there are alternate ways to deal with overcrowding, which would alleviate some of our issues. Nonviolent offenders may not always need to go to prison for a long, long time. I mean, your CPA that absconded with whatever, maybe he could do some community service once he's proved himself to be a good egg. Maybe he could do some community service, teaching people how to balance their checkbooks, because that's not taught in school, by the way, anymore. Things like that. Community service could be used for the nonviolent offenders. Privatization, I think, has been discussed and batted around for years and fought over for years. I don't see that that's going to change anytime soon. I know that there's so much back and forth about the issue that honestly, I think that you would need to very, very, very closely look at the numbers either way. Us fixing it ourselves versus privatization. And those were the numbers I was looking for. But at the end of the day, it is about the cost. And if going private will fix it and it's cheaper and the conditions are met like the feds want them, then okay. But how many Alabamians might that put out of work? That's another thing you got to look at. So again, you're kind of double-edged sword thing, and we don't really have the money to rebuild our prison system as it is. So again, back to the budget situation. So that's kind of my long and short, double-edged sword answer again.
Okay, I wish I had more than 3 minutes to talk right here, so I'm going to talk real fast. Okay, let me address the first part of that question and tell you this. In the state of Alabama, you now have sentencing guidelines. Ladies and gentlemen, if you commit a nonviolent offense, you have to try to go to prison. They have got so many programs right now that about the 4th time you get arrested for a nonviolent felony, you might, and I said might, go to prison. So they are doing everything that they can to keep people out of prison. They have all kinds of programs, drug courts, pretrial diversions, community corrections, all these things to try and keep people out of prison, because I think the last that I heard, I think the estimated cost annually for a healthy prisoner was $28,000 a year to house him. Now, what can we do to stop some of that? Well, the first thing is recidivism. That's where people go back to prison. And there's simple things, in my opinion, that can be done. And this comes from 22 years of practicing law. Do you know how many people that I've represented that have gone to prison for a second or third time that never had a driver's license? I couldn't get a job, man. I couldn't get to work. Well, you know what? Tell them, you ain't getting out of prison until you get a driver's license. And if we as a people have to set up a driving school and give them tests at the prisons, then that's what we need to do if we want them to come out here and work. And stop the DPS from suspending their driver's license when they get arrested. I never understood that. We put all these fines and court costs on them, and then they can't get a job. The other thing is, I can't tell you how many people that I've represented that are functionally illiterate. Before they get out of prison, you make them get a GED. Because what's the first thing on that application? Do you have a high school diploma or GED? All right, that's just a couple of simple solutions that will alleviate the financial drain, in my opinion, on the prison system. The second part of that question is about privatization. Privatization works this way. You don't replace the existing prisons. Usually the community, a local community or county goes in partnership with a private corporation. They build a prison, they staff it, and they take prisoners from the state. So you're not putting anybody out of work. You're creating jobs, okay? And you're getting violent offenders off the street. Told you, I could go on about that, but anyway.
On prison reform, I sort of have a little unique take on it because I had read an article and I talked with a lady who was one of the guards there at Draper years ago. And she told me that one of the biggest things that they're having a problem with, once again, is mental health. And what they do, if the state does, they go in there and they hire a company. I think this company that they have now is out of New York or somewhere. And they're running a business, and you know, what's the bottom line? They're gonna make money. You're gonna make money. And it's my opinion that through the years they have cut service to make money. I think that with the mental health issues and everything, that we need to go ahead and fully fund the mental health side of what am I thinking about? We need to fund mentally health 100% in our state and get them out and talk with them and let the people at mental health work with them. And one of the big things is have them to where they take their medicine on a regular basis. And if they don't take it on there, they're going to wind right back up in prison. And the number was right up there around, I think it was 48% was with mental problems that are in our prison system. To make, let's see, the second part of that, the privatization of it. Once again, what you'll do is, I believe that with the prisons that we have now, I think they're adequate if we will go in there and address the mental health problem. When you start building and you have developers who will build new prisons and everything, over time, they're going to say, okay, we need more money per inmate. Where it'd be, I think, 28,000. You just don't know. By the end of 5 years, you may be paying 40,000. And they'll figure it that way, and before it's over with, they'll drain the state again. So I think the system that we have right now in the prison systems is fine, but we need to address the mental health issues of the inmates that are in there. And I think that our numbers will go down almost half. And that's going to take some budgeting, and that's going to take some funding, but it'll be a whole lot easier than the federal government coming in and jumping in on our prison system. Thank you.
Alabama has a lot of folks in prison, more than the states that surround us, with the exception of Mississippi per capita, which doesn't speak well for us. Back about 1977, we decided that we'd shut down Rice Hospital and our long-term mental institutions. So now, unless you were just rich, there's no way you can afford to send somebody for long-term care. So they go for 72 hours and they get their meds and then they leave, and then a week later they're back in this cycle of going to the hospital or wrestling the police and ultimately end up in prison. A couple of months ago, I went to the Shelby County Republican Club, and Governor Ivey was there, made a speech, and she said that the legislature is going to do something about prisons in Alabama because it's the right thing to do, and we just have to do it. Morally, it's something we have to do. We can't treat people like animals, regardless of what they've done to get there. Half of the folks that are in that prison, they're mentally ill in the first place. The other half got an IQ of 80 or below. So these are the people that we have just decided can't mix with the rest of society. So our job's cut out for us right there. What do? We reevaluate the way we do mental health. We have to do something different. We cannot continue like we are now. For one thing, it's too expensive, and the other thing, it's morally wrong. As far as whether private folks run prisons or the state runs prisons, does anybody here care? As long as they are locked up and not killing me or robbing me, I don't care. If it's cheaper to put them in a private prison, that's fine.
Well, this is the last question I have. I hope you all have enjoyed this. It's been beneficial. Okay, this last question, this goes to you, Derek. You start off with it. It's a big one for me, I think, since I'm nearing this age pretty soon. Hopefully, I get there. How would you balance the state's fiscal priorities with the need to fund Medicaid?
Well, let me start by saying there's only so much money there. And that goes back to something that I said before, is that we have to be responsible financially for how we spend the money and oversight. I will tell you this, there are simple things, talking about Medicaid, that you can do to alleviate some of the drain, unnecessary drain on Medicaid. I'll give you a simple solution, one simple solution that wouldn't cost a nickel. I can't tell you how many times I've been in court with child support, and the non-custodial parent that's paying child support has insurance available. And DHR or the other attorney on the other side insist that the child remain on All Kids or Medicaid because they can keep control of it, is what they say. A simple solution that wouldn't cost a nickel is to require every judge to make an inquiry. Is there insurance available by one of the parents? If so, is there a compelling reason that we don't put this child on that insurance and take them off the Medicaid and All Kids roll? I mean, that's simple. That would alleviate some of the problems. I would say that there's probably, and I say this because I've encountered it and seen it in the court system, there is Medicaid fraud, and that happens. For instance, you can see what the estimated cost of a child being born, is probably around about $30,000. And if that mother shouldn't be on Medicaid, then that's $30,000 that came out of our money. That if we do a better job of policing what we're doing, I think that we can save that program financially, and I think that we can help people and create more money available for people that really need it. I don't think that we should require hospitals to operate at a loss. I know that our hospital out here, every time a child is born that's paid for by Medicaid, it costs that hospital out there $800. Not that, that's after Medicaid pays. They came out in the hole when the child is born. Ladies and gentlemen, if you continue to run the system the way it is right now, you will take rural hospitals like we have and run them out of business, because you can't stay in business if you're losing money. So there's some changes need to be done. I think if we look at what we have and police it a little better, that we can save it. All right, sorry about that.
On the Medicaid issue, I do know there's fraud out there, and it needs to be addressed right off the bat. And then number two, I am for fully funding Medicaid. As I have gone around and talked with people in our communities and everything, you would not believe the kids that have childhood diabetes that could not afford to pay $5,000 a month for health insurance. We have them in our communities that also have childhood cancer. They cannot afford to pay that $5,000 a month bill. So we have Medicaid, but we also have those that are defrauding the Medicaid system. What I would like to see happen is everything is fully funded by the federal government. I know that our past governor did not want to take the funding and everything, but if you'll go around and you'll talk to people at the David Lake Martin Hospital, and if you'll go out here and talk with the CEO, Mr. Jim Peace out here, well, it's in bad shape. There is also something that needs to be addressed with Medicaid. When the federal government sends down those dollars, there's always a middleman who passes it on to the state, and everybody's slow about paying. You have the middleman sitting there with that money on interest, and they're drawing interest off of that money that should have done been released and sent to the states. That's something that's got to be addressed too. And I know that's a little on the deep management side of it, but they make more money than what they're sending to the states. You've got to get in there, and that needs to be addressed. It needs to come straight to the states and federal government. And I honestly believe that. But I believe in fully funding Medicaid. I believe in hunting down and finding the ones who are defrauded. And there are a lot out there. I forget the number, but it would save a lot of money on the Medicaid problem. But my concern in our area is economic development. Anything like that with schools and with the hospitals. If you don't have a hospital local, it's not good. I know in the districts that I go, I would love to see Medicaid fund a doctor to go to each county, each town that is in our district. And when they could do that, you would have people that didn't have to travel in here 40, 50 miles and then 40 or 50 miles back home. As the question read, yes, I am for fully funding Medicaid, and I am in it too to make sure that we get the people who defraud it, because there are people out there that dearly need it, and it's our seniors and our kids. Thank you.
Once again, that's one of those big yikes issues right there. The first thing I'd like to say is the CHIP program for all kids. That's federally funded for now. It may not be in the next year or two. So that's another thing coming down the road looking at us. Medicaid is one of those things that if you look at 1/5 of the folks in Alabama are on it. So that tells you a lot about us as a state, doesn't it? Some states, you look at, I think it's Kentucky, where they enacted a law that if you receive Medicaid, you're between 18 and 49 and you're able-bodied, you have to work. That's always sounds like a viable thing to do, but there's always the law of unintended consequences too. Here in this district, where we have 2 small hospitals, and we don't actually have one in the far west side of our district, but it's right across the line. I can guarantee you that if you have people with no insurance and they have the right to buy insurance after they're diagnosed with something bad wrong with them, then you're going to see some hospitals in a world of hurt from these same folks that used to be on Medicaid. So Medicaid is something we're going to have to fund, or we're going to have to figure out how we're going to treat people. And the issue is really about health care. It's not about Medicaid. It's not about insurance. It's how do we treat people that need to see doctors and go to hospitals that are poor. One of the blessings we have in Alabama is we just got a whole bunch of folks that fit that category. Medicaid's going to be funded. I know it, and I worked 15 years in pre-hospital health care. So this is something I'm very familiar with. I know that as an air ambulance service, we actually moved assets across state lines because we could not make it in Alabama. We could move 3 miles over into Georgia and make 3, 4, 5, 6 times the amount of money on a run that we made in Alabama. So the best and the brightest folks that are in the medical field, the folks that you would want to come to rural Alabama and practice medicine, doctors, nurses, those kind of folks, they're not going to come here because there's no money. So that's the issue as legislators we need to be thinking about, is what can we do to turn that around? But Medicaid is going to have to be fully funded, or we're going to have to find some alternative to what we're doing now.
So this brings me back to that budget question we had earlier. When we said, did we want to combine the education budget with the general fund budget? Well, I think, given this question, y'all might have a different opinion of that, because the Medicaid bill is going up every year. This year, we were lucky that we had BP oil money to pay the bill. A lot of what people we've been referring to, I'll just call it what it is. It's the expansion. That's what y'all heard on the news, the expansion, the Medicaid expansion. Well, Alabama didn't take the expansion. And I'll tell you why. The why is Because if we take that expansion, the feds will match, for every $1 we put in, the feds will match $7. So they give us 7 for every 1 we put up, which is great, right? We expand, we'll have a doctor's office in Rockford, we'll have one over in Verbena, we'll have one, heck, we can have ambulance service down at Russell Crossroads. I mean, Kellyton can have another doctor's office. I mean, it's game on, right? 7-to-1 match. That 7-to-1 match ends in 2020. So where are we going to pay for all of that stuff we just put out there for everybody in 2021? So again, with the double-edged sword, we need our rural hospitals. We need to keep them in check. But the bottom line is, it's not just a Medicaid issue with the rural hospitals either. It's a Blue Cross Blue Shield thing too. They reimburse for, just say you had a pneumonia patient. And I've been talking to Mike and Jim also. If you have a pneumonia patient, that pneumonia patient goes to Russell or Lake Martin Community Hospital, and those two hospitals get reimbursed a certain amount. If that pneumonia patient, were in Birmingham, Blue Cross Blue Shield would pay more for that pneumonia patient because it's an urban area. So rural hospitals, rural doctors, they get reimbursed less by Blue Cross Blue Shield than urban places do. So that compounds the problem even more. So this is what we're looking at. We can expand. We can. But what are we going to do in 2021 when we've got all these facilities open and all of these gimmies out there? It's hard to take those back once they've been given. And so that's the battle that the legislature has been facing. Who's going to pay that bill in 2021? Where is that money coming from?
That was the last question I have. I don't know. I want to thank you guys for letting me moderate. I hope I did okay. Hope I didn't make anybody too mad.
Just in light of time, because we did go over, if you could, I was going to give everybody a chance to just give a wrap up. Let's not do 3 minutes. Can you keep your elevator speech maybe half a minute or so, just to kind of wrap up what you said?
I appreciate all y'all coming out. Again, my name is Derek Blythe. I'd really like your vote and your support. I'd like for you to talk to your friends and neighbors and tell them what you heard here today. If you have any questions for me, my office is located here in town. The phone number is written across the side of the building, about 20 feet long. My cell number, if you want it, is 256-496-3006. So feel free to call me, and that's the way I intend. If you'll let me be your legislator, that's the way I intend to do it. I intend to be accessible. I want you to be able to find me, ask me questions, and I'll just say this. And this is my mission statement. If it's good for our district, then I'm for it. If it's bad for our district, then I'm against it. And if I don't know, then I'm gonna come to you and ask you. Okay? All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm Terry Martin, and I am running for House District 81. And my goal is to improve the quality of life in the communities of District 81. That's big. That's huge. It covers everything that we did here tonight. With that being said, I would like everyone to know that they can have my number. My cell number is 256-496-4301. And any questions tonight after this, if you would have of me, I'll be more than glad to answer them. I want to be your representative for House District 81. I will use my skills in public communication and everything, and I will work hard for you. And I need your vote come June the 5th. Vote Terry Martin, House District 81. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Ed Oliver, and I do want to be your legislator, and I want to represent you in the House. But first, I'd like to thank all these folks right here for showing up, and it takes a lot of nerve to run, and I appreciate them being here. The hard job is what you folks have to do. You have to decide who you want to go down there and wrestle all these bears. Thank y'all for coming.
Guys, the next 4 years are gonna be big for Alabama. I know they are. I've been at the bottom of everything you could possibly be at, and I have fought my way back up. As a single mama, I have fought my way back up, and as hard as that was to do, I will fight for District 81 in Montgomery. Y'all have a choice to make. Y'all can choose to keep making the same decisions and keep going down the same roads over and over and over again. But guess what? That pothole's still there. And it's not going anywhere. So on June the 5th, I ask that you choose to do better, like I have, and choose joy.
So again, the primary is June 5th. Be sure you're voting in the GOP primary so you can choose one of our great candidates. Thank you. Have a good night.